Over 10 million children and young adults consume ADHD stimulant and psychiatric medications. America is battling a childhood behavioral health crisis. The assessment process must be reformed. This is the Over Medicating Our Youth series. And now, your hosts, pharmacist Frank Granite and the Honorable Judge Jody.
Welcome to the special edition Over Medicating Our Youth series. I am your host, Frank Granite, pharmacist and author of the book, Over Medicating Our Youth. During this program, we will explain why America is battling a behavioral health crisis involving attention deficit disorder, depression, as well as opiate addiction in our teen and young adult population. And we're seeing this in the late teens and even early 20s, where if we don't strengthen a child from young childhood, right, the behavior part, making them their lives purposeful, teaching them that, and as they grow into their teen years, this child, when they're having or a parent notices some type of behavioral disturbances at an early age, we need to intervene right there, because later on, what your stories are right here, and I know there's hundreds more ahead. Right. Hundreds. So the thing is, what we need to do is stop those stories, but the only way we're going to stop your stories, right, is if we get to the young kids early, and the parents, the educators, and the physicians as one. And so that's why, when I founded the Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth, we are looking for dynamic people that can really make a difference and have the passion.
If I wasn't a judge, I wouldn't know these things.
Right.
I just wouldn't, just by virtue of not being exposed to them. So I don't think that we can fault parents at some, for necessarily not knowing, but it is our obligation, to be aware as parents, but it's also as professionals, our obligations to get out there, educate. We have to empower individuals. Again, I'll say prevention and education is truly where it's at, whether it's health, being physically in shape, whether it's nutrition. I mean, there's so many things. And if you read your book or even go to your website, which is fantastic, a fantastic resource, there's so many things that we can do. Unfortunately, we're often hamstrung just by virtue of not having the information or not being able to afford to really disseminate that information. Secondly, we have got to put tighter controls and tighter regulations on the pharmaceutical companies. I'm not afraid to say it. Frank and I have a guest here today. She is not only a good friend of mine, but she is a tremendous provider and therapist. She is the program director and co-founder of Milford Counseling. Elizabeth Reeder, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. And the development, when you're talking about the young adults and the children in specific, the brain is not completely developed until the age of 25. Right. So we do see, statistically speaking, that when adolescents and children are exposed to psychoactive substances at those young ages, that the rates and levels of addiction do increase amongst that population. What I would have to say is that amongst children under the age of 13, the two most common medications that I hear that they've taken are opiates and or Adderall or some sort of medication for ADHD.
Instead of going after causation, which we talk about in the coalition, is these behavioral symptoms have a cause, and we can revert these kids. That's what we do. That's our mission.
We do have a tendency to keep these extremely deadly, highly addictive substances available and in our medicine chest. Not only that, but they're typically past expiration and sitting in a place that's just available for anyone to get.
We're not engaging in hyperbole here. It's a real epidemic, and all of the national organizations, the drug enforcement, everyone, the President of the United States, everyone is calling these prescription pills, all of them, an epidemic, especially for our kids and young adults.
There's no other person that has the ability to utilize those accountability actions other than a judge than a parent with a child who's under the age of 18, because they really do control the environment, or could control the environment entirely if they wish to do so. And it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, or the most convenient thing to do.
If you love your kid, we all love our kids. Is that enough?
No, it's definitely not. And in fact, that's probably the most difficult thing, is because the addict themselves, once an addiction is developed, their obsession is simply to use more. And so they will manipulate, and it's not meant to be vindictive. However, it does have to be looked at for exactly what it is, which is dangerous.
We already have a pre-recorded taping with a renowned doctor, Dr. Cowan.
To me, one of the biggest things is if we look at the hallmark symptoms of ADHD, impulsiveness, hyperactivity, inattention, mood swings. If I went to a physician or a psychiatrist or whatever with these particular symptoms, chances are real good that they're going to tell me that I have ADHD.
Right.
But there's all these other things, starting with nutritional things such as low blood sugar and so on, that produce exactly the same symptoms. I think where we've gotten in trouble over the years is we never confront the issues of looking for real causes, and many times, I think according to our past Surgeon General, he said 75% of the chronic diseases that people experience are brought about by bad lifestyle choices.
Nutrition is the key. It's not only what you're taking in like you just described, but it's also making sure the child's elimination faculties are in order. Are they eliminating toxins or are they not? So in the question of attention deficit over time, that's a prominent risk factor to look at. The physiological part of it, can you explain what and how that innervation, like especially on the cervical spine, can that contribute to the onset of an ADD child?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, probably the two most important segments are the first and second cervical, because part of the brainstem's actually being involved there.
What you're saying is nervous system impingement of flow can affect behavior.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In the hospital a lot of times, because everybody's on schedule, things need to keep moving. During that delivery process, once that head passes, boy, we grab that thing, turn it a quarter turn, and yank to line up the shoulders and pull it out. Well, if I grabbed your head and did that, first, you probably punch me in the nose, but secondly, I'm going to do some trauma to your neck. Well, now take a little tiny baby like that and do that to the baby, and understand that the neck is probably one of the major causative agents in a lot of these problems like this. Wouldn't it be logical to be one of the very first things that you're going to do is to check the baby's neck after delivery? We're in a society that wants things right now, and they want it gone right now. And things like Ritalin, if you read the literature, what a lot of docs just say is it works, and it probably does.
I'll give you a
But
stat.
at what price?
At what price is right? Because 7 out of 10 children, if they're put on Ritalin, let's say we have a minor focus issue, 7 out of 10 children will respond positively. What parents are not aware of, or the education system is not aware of, it's down the road, years down the road, where anxiety is the first to pop up. We have minor depression could surface, etc. You know, the behavioral issues start years down the road, and that's why the link now, and the FDA has already warned us about this. It came out a couple years ago. The longer a child is on a potent stimulant type medication with no regard to a differential diagnosis to find cause of the problem first, then the higher risk comes with suicide ideologies.
We're still revolving from a situation where we call healthcare, but it's not.
Right.
It's sickness treatment.
It's reactive care.
Yes, it's reactive care. So what we need to do is switch over to true healthcare, which deals with lifestyle choices.
I'd like to introduce the owners of Brain Life Center in Clarkston, Michigan, Ms. Julie Lamphere and Dave Sanders.
What we're doing, however, is using the data we pull with the EEG sensors and feeding it back to the client in a mirroring effect.
Okay.
It's in the form of sound, so it's a very high resonance sound, but when we are picking up brainwave activity via these sensors, the technology is turning it into a sound wave that's high resonant, and it's doing it within about 50 milliseconds. So what we're finding, and they've been doing this for about 14 years, almost 55,000 clients, certain relational imbalances that we're picking up, when we go to those locations and we mirror it back to the client, the brain tends to want to resolve the issue.
What is this exact brainwaves, and why is it aberrant in an ADHD patient, or do you?
Well, the key with what we do, and it is a little bit different, but there are similarities. What we see is a very specific spike of activity when we look at a front-to-back relationship.
Okay.
So we look at high to low frequencies in the frontal lobe, and we'll see this little range that's a little out of balance. And the way we know it's out of balance is primarily because we track it really well. We found these correlations over time. If you have this specific relational imbalance, which is very readable, we plug this into a database, we're finding that most people with this specific relational imbalance are experiencing problems with ADHD.
Something that our parents, I hear from a lot of our parents, is you've given us our child back. They notice a big difference in their personality when they're on the meds and then when they're off the meds. So not only is it helping them focus better, but it also gives them who they are, their personality shows back up.
I don't want our viewers to think that this is electromagnetic forces going into the brain. This is just reading what the brain is doing, as simple as that, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's completely passive.
Passive.
It's a mirror effect in the form of sounds, and it's like holding a mirror to the brain in the location where they're having problems.
When we look at brainwave optimization, this is like a tool or assessment that a parent or family can undergo, just like the other assessments we talked about earlier in our program. And we talked about physiological risk factors, we talked about nutritional risk factors, the environmental risk factors. The action plan we've already have in place through the Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth now includes brainwave optimization to help children get back on a normal brainwave path.
I have another guest here with us today, and her name is Erin Wolick. And I want to get this right, Erin. She is the Director of Public Relations for our Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth, but she is also a Dodge narrator and a product specialist for the Chrysler Corporation, a formal finalist for Miss Michigan pageant, and most importantly and most germane to our topic today, she, like us, is passionate about child advocacy and dedicated to teaching children the importance, and young adults as well, the importance of fitness and nutrition.
Over 6 years now, I've been teaching fitness classes and working with kids, and it's a passion of mine. I love teaching, I love learning, and hopefully changing the lives of people through education. I always tell my students when I'm teaching a class that we are working on flushing our body of toxins. So we have a workout, we sweat. After we sweat, we replenish our bodies with water. That's going to flush those toxins out.
One of my favorite analogies is your body is like a race car, and you want to make sure that the race car has good fuel, of course has good oil for it to perform. So maybe explain it to a child more on their level. You want to put good foods into your body so that your body runs.
Start with little goals with children. They respond to that. Children like being pushed and challenged. Set those goals, let them achieve those goals, and then move on.
Hi, my name is Mary Reyes, and I just want to know what, if anything, well, first, before I start that, I'm a mother of a child who was a little more energetic, and the first instinct of the schools was to tell me that he needed to be on medication. So as I took him to the doctor, they said, well, okay, and they told me the process that he would go through to get, diagnosed with ADHD, but nobody ever told me of any bioassessments or nutrition or anything. So what, if anything, is being done to get into the schools so that when a teacher notices this in a child, they can give them a pamphlet or,
Right.
give them a brochure or something to say, check all this out first.
We make attempts to contact as many school districts as we can, Mary. And this action plan alone is just a very simple brochure. It's on our website, and it gives parents and educators just a simple tool to rule out some things before going to drug therapy. Because once we start that road, it's a very hard road to come off. School districts have the job, if you will, to control their classrooms. However, parents and school districts and physicians need to work together.
Just want to take the opportunity, Frank, to thank everyone for their support in producing these DVDs and for taking the time to listen to the message we're putting forward. The alliance with the Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth and the Regional Anti-Drug Education and Outreach is strong, and it's building energy every single day. What we need is you to contribute to that alliance. I'm not talking about financially. Certainly as a judge, I'm not talking about financially. But what we need is for you to give us an opportunity, join, bring your information, bring your community group, bring your parent organization, and we'd love to answer your questions. There's some information on our website about how you can reach both of us and some of the other contributors to our organizations, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again.
And Judge Jody, I'd like to thank you because it takes a lot, because there's judges, there's pharmacists, there's doctors, there's teachers who want to veer away from this sensitive topic. This is a topic that is affecting every child, every young adult in America and beyond its borders. And I feel that when we communicated and connected and we're on the same wavelength, if you will, we're gathering other people that are on that wavelength. And what it's doing is saving a generation of kids. Because I'll tell you right now, if things do not change, we will lose a generation of kids. But I have great faith in our country and people like Judge Jody and all those that are associated with our coalition and our alliances, and we encourage school districts and politicians and policymakers to contact us and let us spread the word through you as well. Thank you.